I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 108. This one's with Margo Tantau, and it's actually a swap cast of her podcast, Windowsill Chats. This is the complete unedited version. Throughout it, I actually asked her a bunch of questions too, so it's kind of a balance between the two of us. You get to hear my goofy-ass story on how I got into design again. But this was a great talk. Margo's a very positive and uplifting person, and she provided me with a challenge to launch another podcast this year that I've been holding off on. So that is one of my soon-to-be happening goals. But if you'd like to find out more about Margo, you can find her online at tantaustudio.com. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name right. I listened to it 3 times to make sure I pronounced it right now. I'm hoping I'm getting it right. But that's TANTAU studio.com. And make sure you subscribe to her podcast, Windowsill Chats. And you can follow that on Instagram at Windowsill Chats, WINDOWSILLCHATS. But yes, give her podcast a subscription, rate her 5 stars, leave some positive feedback. And I really appreciate Margo for having me on and being such a positive light. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at @FeralGiant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode.
You got it. We're recording. We're recording.
I still can't get used to that. Like when it happens and it's so loud, it just freaks me out.
It's kind of magical. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
And then there's that imposter syndrome. Like, I'm recording. Me?
Yeah.
I'm really recording.
It is funny because everything's on these little bitty screens, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel real. It kind of feels real, kind of doesn't feel real. I don't know.
Exactly. But I'm super glad we're talking. We're here. You're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a rainy day here in the Pacific Northwest.
It was raining all day yesterday, and it is now like 27 degrees here. So
oh, lovely. Sorry about that.
I love it. I'm wearing shorts. It's
of course
great.
You are.
Hashtag winter shorts. I keep trying to make that a thing.
That makes me think back to those people in my life that were winter shorts wearers. We all have a few, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a new one. You.
Oh yeah, that's me. I always joke that like when I was young, my dad and I would have contests to see who could last the longest without wearing pants he was a truck driver.
Oh, love
it. So
it
was always just like, come on, boy. And then also the carrying in of groceries, that it took me until I was in my mid-30s to realize, hey, that contest about who can carry in the most groceries, that's just him conning you into carrying in more groceries.
I always thought my mom just had me to set the table and empty the dishwasher. That's the only reason she had kids. So the creative path, I'd love,
oh my God.
it's a good one. It's a windy, twisty one.
Oh,
but
God.
You have stories for me inquiring minds want to know, who is this Jody Collins?
I'm still trying to figure that out. It's 43 years later and I'm still trying to figure that out.
There you go.
It's interesting because I go and talk to schools a lot. And I go back to like my old high school and talk to the kids. And I always start out with, now this is going to sound weird to y'all, but when I was here, there were only 2 computers in the entire school.
Mm-hmm.
One was in print shop, one was in drafting. And it was it's interesting if you're from here and somebody says, where'd you go to high school? I say Fulton. They all go, oof. It was extremely rough. Like, saw a gun on my first day of high school.
Wow.
Fights every day, cops up there all the time.
And is that in Knoxville?
Yep, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yep.
Pride and joy. But we figured out at our 20th high school reunion that 3/4 of our graduating class were dead, in jail, or had done prison time.
Did you say 3/4?
3/4.
Wow, that's an impressive number.
That's one way to put it. Yeah. So it was a very rough high school.
Yeah.
And
you took the artful way out.
Well, I got out. That's the funny part, is going back and talking to those kids, because I grew up super poor.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to the kids, I was like, I know what I look like. I'm from here. I can hang with y'all.
Yeah.
It was actually rough when I went up here to high school. Y'all got it easy, you pansies.
But they must really, I've done a lot of that, speaking to students about, maybe things they haven't thought about yet. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. That's what, when I go and talk to them, the big crux of my talk is that you can make a living making art.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, the rules have changed. Like now with like Instagram and everything, you don't have to be some rich kid to make it.
No,
like
you don't.
Like talent trumps all, always.
It's really true. It's really true. Talent and chutzpah and bravery and just doing it, I think.
And having a little bit of stubbornness and tenacity, I think, is really huge.
Goes a long way.
But yeah, it's really weird. Like when I went to school, I was on our city's business advisory council, and we had a what is he? He's like a liaison between the police and the civilians. And he was like, oh yeah. And in the 90s, when the Miami gangs came up to Knoxville, I was like, oh, so that was true. I wasn't making that up. He was like, no. And I was like, there was a guy on our football team that in September wore a big puffy coat because he was cold. He was from Miami. Oh, got it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, but I was very lucky in that we had a print shop, and my instructor, Conley Miracle.
Oh, wow. What a great name.
Conley Miracle, and my art teacher, Miss Waller. I don't know her first name, just Miss Waller.
But she was a good one.
She was good. By the time I graduated, I was in like Art 6, even though that was a big thing growing up. All my friends were very talented. And I even feel that now, like when I do Inktober, I kind of gave up halfway through because I was looking at my friends. I was like, all right, y'all are doing this all digitally and you suck. Like, you're so good that no, why are you you're killing me, man. And I saw your post about the thing in December, and I was like,
yes,
I'm going to do it in December. I'm going to make up for my lack of effort.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is Nulsy just she's doing a Drawcember, and it's a repost from another artist who, I'm sorry, I can't think of their name right now, but the prompts they just look so great. I thought, oh, maybe I'll do that. So we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. Nice. And, but yeah, I got very lucky. And then when it came to going to college, I did get recruited for like football and stuff to go to Purdue or Lenore Ryan, but I had to pay my first year or two. I would have to have been a walk-on.
Oh.
And not going to do that. Lenore Ryan in North Carolina was like $28,000 a year.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not a good enough student to get any scholarships.
Right. Then you have to make the football team and do the reason why you're there. Yeah. What position? I just have to know.
Offensive, defensive tackle. Probably more known for. So I am. Fun fact about me, and we've made it 5 minutes without me mentioning this. I am 6'7".
Oh my gosh!
I'm a large man.
I love that.
Yeah, so much so.
They didn't know that when they were listening to you, so it's nice to know.
No,
you didn't sound that tall.
So much so that I have cards.
Oh my gosh! Okay. This is okay. So wait, I'm going to take a screenshot of this because I was in the Atlanta airport not that long ago, and there was a gentleman in front of me on the escalator. Got it. Who was 7 foot.
Holy crap!
12. He was 7'12". Yes,
that's 8 foot tall.
Yeah. He was, he was very tall, but I just felt for him because like, why do people ask the questions they ask? Yep. I was like, my friendly large person, because I could tell you, because I was standing right next to him, his feet are a size 24. Mm-hmm. He played baseball, blah, 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 all the things. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, give me your number. I'll send you I'll make you some cards, but that's great that you have the cards.
Well, and it's out in the 5 or 6 years I've had those cards. I've given out, I think I'm up to 400 to 500. That's how often I get asked. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's how often I get asked about that.
I think really people should have more original thoughts in their heads.
But I always love that people act like it's the first time I've ever been asked about it. And there's sometimes I feel like a real jerk for handing them a card, but I'm like, no, you asked the question. Yes, I am tall. Thank you.
Here are the rest of the details. I know. My little known fact is I was going to be the first, and my listeners are going to be like, what? Oh. I was going to be the first NCAA female football coach. I was so massively involved in football. In college, I went to UC Davis, which was a non-scholarship school with a fantastic coach. And I loved it. I graded. Yeah. I was involved in high school too. So I graded films and I took pictures and all sorts of things. And I worked for the 49ers for a while. And it was in the day though, when I said, I'd really like to do this full time. I'm leaving out a lot of the story, but I said, I want to recruit because that's what I did in school too. And they said, well, if you'd really like to work for us, you could put on a short skirt and sell boxes at Candlestick Park, and I was like, talking to the wrong person. No. They literally said that. So I had to, when the people that I could work with went other places, so did I. But it was really fun.
Well, since you like football, you'll like this stat. So when I was a sophomore, we had our defensive line was 2 tackles and a nose tackle. The nose tackle was 5'4", 155 pounds, something like that. Tiny guy, but could squat like 450.
Wow.
Like Josh.
Wow.
And then on the other side of the line was Big D, Damian Goins. And he was 5'7", weighed 350, 375.
Wow.
And then you had me at like 6. At that point, as a sophomore, I was like 6'4", 6'5", and probably weighed 250, 265. That was our defensive line.
Oh my gosh.
We played one game. I still love this, against Halls, and D got all the tackles because they saw me and were like, nope. And they all ran his way. And
he was just a wall.
And I kept getting yelled at by the refs because my head was over the line. But if I went back, my linebackers would yell at me because they would step on my feet. I was like, I just tried to hurt people, guys.
Got to be offsides one way or the other.
Come on, guys.
Got to go watch one of those replays. But we digress. There's all sorts of ways to be creative in life. See?
Yeah, that was always the weird part is in like high school and even growing up, this is going to sound Debbie Downer, but whatever group I was in, I was always treated like I wasn't in that group. Like the football players treated me like a nerd because I was in the college prep classes. The only people who, so also Fulton, my high school was 2/3. I grew up in the black neighborhood, and Fulton was 2/3 black when I went there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was used to being the only white guy in the room. And the people who accepted me were the art school girls. I'm going to use the term girls because we were, and black people like those. That was the only people who just said like, no, that's just Big Jody. Like everybody else was like, oh, you're a nerd. I was like, I also just picked you up and flipped you over, dude. Like, come on. And the nerds were like, oh, you're a dumb jock. Yeah. Like it's so weird.
Isn't it nice I have a 13-year-old and I keep telling him, honestly, it gets better. It does. You find your people. Yeah. Right now it's tricky, but you do find your people.
My cousin, he was having a really rough time to where he was like not eating and stuff in high school. And he lived up Michigan. They came down visit in the summer. I looked at him and was like, dude, just duck your head and get through high school. Yeah. High school does not matter. Just get past high school. It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter.
And when you're that age, it's everything.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So where are you originally from?
I am a 5th generation Californian.
Okay.
So I grew up in Northern California.
Okay.
Bay Area and in the Napa Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
San Francisco, probably number 1 on my list. If I didn't live here, I've been there 3 times for 10 days at a clip. And I love it. I actually love it. Yeah.
I love being anywhere for a chunk of time so you can feel like you're a bit of a local and, you know, they know you maybe at the coffee shop.
But it was weird going in like 2009 and then seeing how it's changed to where,
oh my goodness, yeah.
Holy crap. Like I stayed in some weird hotel downtown for like $60 a night in 2009. Mm-hmm. And then I think the last time I went, I stayed in an Airbnb and it was like $135 a night. And that was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Oh, it's changed a lot. Yeah. It's so close to Silicon Valley and all. That's really changed everything.
Although being up there, is there a mass exodus like everybody talks about or no?
I think that's cyclical. I think you could say that for any time, right? You know, I think when Haight-Ashbury was hopping, people probably thought, oh, we can't live here. Right. There's all these hippies. And, you know, it's maybe just a slightly different type of people come in and out, but it is really expensive. And growing up, I never thought I'd leave California. And I've lived so many other places but California. And I'd rather sort of investigate and discover my own place than a place that feels very much like, you know, you're more keeping up with the Joneses than you wish you were there. But my roots are there for sure.
It's weird because I'm born and raised here in Knoxville, and it is getting insane here. The amount of people moving from California, New Jersey, and Florida to where houses are going for $80,000 above asking price and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're kind of not used to that here.
I think, you know, certainly our ancestors decided to move across the country in a covered wagon or however they did it, on train or whatever. But and then I feel like for a big chunk of time you were coastal or you were in the middle or you're in the South or something like that. But I really have seen, certainly in the past, I don't know, it seems like the last 5 or 10 years, even more, where people are moving to places you'd never have thought to move to because, and I could say this for sure. I mean, I've lived in a bunch of places in the middle of the country, but when I lived in Kansas City, it felt like this magical way to be able to be creative because it was affordable. Fantastically gorgeous art studios in these old brick, you know, warehouses and cool restaurants because you could afford to try that and afford to get a house that you could, you know, live in instead of, you know, especially if you've come from a place where you were paying a lot more.
Yeah.
And I would think Knoxville is seeing that as well, for sure.
I think and it's weird because I had a friend move down from Jersey, her and her husband 10 years ago. They were looking for a house, trying to move out an apartment. And they found houses down here and they're like, oh, it's only $400,000. I was like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
For $400,000, I better be getting like 12 acres of land
Yeah.
and a giant mansion. I was like, my house is right around 2,300 square foot. And I
Nice.
bought it 17 years ago for $83,500.
Wow.
And it's in like the blue collar side of town,
Yeah.
not in the rough side of town, not in the chintzy side of town, but
I think
it's
the bargain days are over here in the Pacific Northwest for sure. But
what did your folks do? Like, were you always into art as a kid? Did they kind of embrace that and shepherd that?
They did. My dad was he was a pilot, which was an alternative career in itself, but also a thespian. He always sang, always was singing and performing when he was home. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but an interior designer and a painter, and so we were always encouraged. My grandmother was, whenever she'd visit, she was doing needlepoint, just always around creative upbringing. And we heard that that was a possibility for us. Although my dad didn't want me to go to get a well-rounded education instead of an art school, which was what I was voting for. But then I got the football. So there you go.
Yeah. There you go. You got the
How
football.
about you?
I am.
Where'd this creativity come from?
No idea. I am the only artist still in my family. Like I was the only grandkid for about 10 years. So I was treated like a little brother. My dad and his two brothers, my uncles. Oh no. Oh.
Or no.
To tell you more fun stories about parents were pretty poor. Mom worked for the phone company. Dad was a truck driver. And we once a year we got to go on vacation, and we went to Myrtle Beach.
Nice.
Because a group of like 20 families would get together and get a really good deal on a hotel, and we would get to go. That was the only vacation we had, essentially. And but when I was young, I was the only kid there. So my dad and uncles air quotes,
sure,
would take me bar hopping with them.
Oh.
So I'd be sitting there drinking my little Shirley Temples because it had a little sword.
Oh, yes.
I would collect those swords, and virgin pina coladas. So I was 5 or 6 years old sitting at a bar with my dad and uncles.
Because how else were they going to do it?
Yeah. And so another fun fact, this is all going to be nothing but fun facts. So my grandfather was 6'2", and he was born like 1917. So he was big for his, and he grew up very rough to the point to where when he went off to World War II, he came back he fought in the Pacific and some rough and hairy stuff. Yeah. And when he came back, he was like, nope, no more. I ain't getting into no more trouble. I've seen enough stuff. I don't need to. But he, because he grew up so poor, and the fun fact about him was his dad was married 5 or 6 times and had 28 something kids.
Wow. And that was unusual then.
And the age range, the only way I can remember is my great uncle Audie was, when he turned 100, my great uncle Tom was 54.
Wow.
So
go grandpa.
46 years in difference. But I say that to go back to the bar thing, because he grew up so poor, he grew up around Black people and stuff. And I always fight against that Southern people are racist, because it's like, please stop.
Right.
Let's stop.
Yeah. It depends.
Yeah. So like my grandfather, I remember one year at Christmas, somehow the N-word came up. Didn't say it. No, he said, oh, I didn't teach my boys to say that word. They don't say that shit in front of me. And he never cussed in front of my granny except for then. Like he was so adamant. And
so you knew that was really important to him.
Oh yeah. And then my dad, so here's where we go back to the bar. So I'm 5 or 6 sitting on a bar stool in Myrtle Beach, and sitting a stool over talking to my dad is a guy with a tattoo on his forearm. This was back when tattoos, only sailors and bikers had tattoos.
Right.
And that guy just starts dropping the N-word.
Oh, no,
and my dad's 6'4" truck driver dude.
Right.
He looks back at me. He looks at that guy, and the finger came out. He was like, if you say that word one more time, my son is going to get off that chair, come over here and kick your ass.
Awesome.
And that
Did
guy,
it work?
and I think he said something like, a lot of his friends are black, and you need, like, he just started going off on that dude. And the guy looked at me, looked at my dad, picked up his beer and walked away. Because he also saw my dad, who was 6'4",
Right.
300 pounds. And
yeah,
but yeah,
I just grew up, I don't know, very, always from an early age, very aware that I wanted as many, I didn't want to be different in the way that I
right.
feel better than, like, that whole concept of that just still makes me cringe. It's like, why would I expect that? Why would I? And, saying that from somebody who has entitlement just because of the color of my skin. But I was fortunate to grow up with parents that really, we discussed it. We talked about it. We certainly interacted and had friends, and that it just didn't, but I didn't grow up in a big rough city. I grew up in a place where it was easier. And certainly, from 6th grade on, having a lot of, Latinx sort of friends, and there were, the white, kids were almost a minority in that high school. And but it didn't feel, we never thought of it that way. It was just, these are our friends.
Yeah. And so I'll circle it back to creativity. So one of the notes I made for myself is, so I was AI, communications director for AIGA Knoxville for 2 years, and then president of AIGA.
I saw that. That's awesome.
4 years. And a big thing, I always got fussed at by the national chapter because I kept fighting. I was like, guys, wealth inequality and racism is still a huge thing. I know you're fighting for X, but
you want to say this.
Yeah. And I would fight and argue. And I was like, I get that I'm the white dude, but I'm also in here, and I am the only person who came from poverty in here. Like, guys, and it's so, like, wealth inequality has always been a big thing for me. But when I see it in, like, design and art, like, I've got, during the pandemic, there's a group of 5 to 6 guys that we meet every Wednesday night. And I just chuckle at them because they're all dudes who grew up rich. And they're like, oh, just pay $2,000 and do this. It's like, you're adorable, guy. And a few of them, I have looked at them and said, I cannot be the blackest person you know.
Right.
Like, that is painful to me.
Right.
I was like, because they would ask me questions. I was like, you get that I'm white. And they're like, yeah, but you went to Fulton. I was like, fuck.
Oh yeah. Let's broaden this circle.
Yeah. I was like, no, that's when I just think it's hilarious. I'm like, y'all are idiots on a level, and I love them to death.
Sure.
And
just a different perspective.
Yeah. But I've had this discussion with friends of mine who are LGBTQ plus, and saying it's all weird. And there's a lot of people very uncomfortable talking about it. And if I can be the person that you feel comfortable talking about something with, that's fine. That's fine. That's one step closer. My friend, Katie, I had her on the podcast, and I was like, you got to understand, like, people like my parents, LGBT was LGBT for like this long, for a very long time. And then everything has changed really quick. I was like, and the biggest concern I have is if my mom says the wrong thing, she gets jumped on, but her heart is in the right place.
Yeah, I could say the same for sure.
Yeah, to where it's one of those things. I was like, so when it comes to, like, my friends and them asking me questions and stuff, I was like, first off, you're an idiot. Second off, let me explain to you how it is. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I would like to have, and I've had a great comment, a review by somebody that said, I wish you'd talk about, you had more guests on to talk about the inequalities in the ability to get these jobs, the ability to get this similarity in pay, and just the ability to be seen. And I couldn't agree more that I want to have more and more of those conversations, because we're all in this together, but every voice needs to be heard.
Well, I noticed when I was this is going to sound braggy, and I don't mean it to be. I am a. Here's a very problematic thing. I'm a man. I'm a Southern man, and I'm a Collins man, which is a level of stubbornness that is so deep. But it's when it came to like AIGA, I was like, I started looking at numbers. I was like, I think in the field of graphic design, it is now like a way more women than men for whatever reason. Like when I go to portfolio reviews and stuff, I'm noticing it's like 80-20. I was like, so the future is female. So my board was me and one other dude, and the rest were women. I was like, no, this is representative. So this is how it should be. Wow. And, but I don't say that to put on airs. I say that as the stubborn person being like, no, that's the way it is.
But that's so great. We need more of you.
Oh, no. Trust me, there's plenty. But no. But yeah, it's, and that's the big thing about going and talking to the kids. It's like, hey, I know you don't see a way to do this. Because like your dad's a mechanic and all this. And it's having the hard conversations has led to a lot of hurt feelings to where as a big dude, I felt like I've had to stay very quiet and stay very calm. I was like, because you're going to say I'm angry, and I'm not angry. Well, I am angry, but I'm not lashing out. It's just, yeah.
Don't make me hand you my card.
Yeah.
So how did you, as that minority student in a rough place, who, and often the hardest thing to be in a position like that is different, creative,
right?
Somebody who draws, somebody who, talks about color, that sort of thing. Was it those teachers, the print teacher and the art teacher that helped with that? Like what happened?
It was what happened?
What happened to you?
It was that I wanted to work in computers. And so my only opportunity was working on a Mac 2CI, on the one color 2CI in the print shop, and then getting to learn like printing. Like my first year, I worked in the computer. The second year, I worked in pre-press. Third year, I worked in bindery. Fourth year, I was teaching the class and running the presses.
Wow.
And we had real clients. That was the other weird part.
The high school did.
Yeah, my high school had a vocational, one of the best vocational departments, because it had upholstery, woodworking, auto mechanics, electrical.
Oh, I love that.
Drafting, TV production, radio, because we were a poor school. So it was known those kids needed jobs.
I love that.
Afterwards and not going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And we had real clients. I love telling kids this story. One of our biggest clients when I was in high school was a pager company called Volcom. So when I see the kids with the Volcom shirts on, I'm like, hey, that's a pager company that I used to do work for.
Used to be. You worked for some interesting companies that many people might, have.
Seen. And I was going to say, I had a weird thing happen because I had all that experience when I got out of high school, and Mr. Miracle made some calls. If we're talking privilege and luck, like there were some opportunities I got, like I was going to run a press for 3 months at a print shop on our Main Street gate. Our Main Street is called Gay Street.
Nice.
And we are like in the top 3 biggest pride parades in the country.
Really?
This is all a calling card for Knoxville. Just don't move here. Please don't move.
Don't move here or buy our houses, but do come to the parade.
Please come to visit.
That's awesome.
And the press guy was retiring. The graphic designer was going into the Navy, and they were like, well, you can work on the press for 3 months and then you'll move over. And once I accepted it, the press guy did not want to retire, and the woman decided not to go into the Navy. It's like, mother. So I got that. There was a place called Goodies, which was clothing manufacturer. I was going to run their post press, and it went to that guy's boss's boss, because I was going to college, and they're like, nope, he has to work 8 to 5 every day. He can't work 3 10s and or 3 12s and a 6. So he can't have that job.
Oh, no.
And then the last one, which is the funniest, there was a manufacturing company, and I was 17 years old when I graduated. This is still the funniest one. in another city neighboring Knoxville. I didn't know where it was at, and my dad was off of work, so he drove me there.
Nice.
I walk in, show them my portfolio, and they're like, "Oh, okay, so you will be the head of our PR, design, and marketing department, and you're going to travel to Europe like every 3 months and give press conferences and all this." And I was like, I'm 17. I can't check into a hotel. I was like, and when I got older, I was like, what were they thinking? I was like, oh yeah. Also, I was 6'6", 330 pounds.
Well, yeah.
I look like a man. So
yes. So what'd they say to that? Oh,
they were just like, oh, well, and I had to turn it down. I was like, because I wanted to go to college, and they didn't. They're like, no, you would have to work. I was like,
oh gosh,
I feel like this is going to fizzle, and I need a degree, man. I can't.
Yeah, there's got to be something to back this up.
Yeah. So after that, a very prominent company I worked for was Taco Bell, making tacos. That's how I put myself through college.
7-layer.
Yeah. I tell you what, that thing, working at Taco Bell really taught me how to work on a team.
Yep.
How to work together, and how to work fast and efficiently.
Yep.
Like there's still
a lot to be said for that.
There's still things I do to this day because I worked at Taco Bell for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then
fast food efficiency.
Worked at a digital printing company. Nobody's going to know that one. Consolidated Products Imaging Solutions. I worked for a real estate publication called Home Tour, where I was the art director there, and then went to work at a print shop as an art director and pre-press manager for 5 years, Burns Mine and printing. That was an interesting one because a third of our clients were nonprofits. So I got to learn how to do stuff, and I got opportunities to do work I wouldn't normally get to do because they didn't have budgets to hire agencies.
Oh, that's always good. I mean, I think those jumping around a bit, the little jobs or the jobs where it's a small company and you have to learn multifaceted aspects of it. Those are always great because there you go. There you have that experience you might not have otherwise.
But it's still like, I think, let's see, that one, then I went to work for the News Sentinel, the Knoxville News Sentinel, our paper here in town, paper of record here in town. And then I went to work for Radio Systems Corporation, which is, everybody knows, Pet Safe or Invisible Fence.
Yeah.
And I was listed as a senior graphic designer, but I did the marketing and branding work for all the packaging across all the channels. And it was wild because I did math then when I left there, I went to work back for the newspapers, working for EW Scripts, which turned into Journal Media Group, which got bought out by Gannett, and I got laid off.
Oh no.
But I figured out when I was working there that it's an insane amount of people who have seen my work. And that I'm very proud of. Yeah. Like between the sales at Pet Safe across all 3 channels, all the newspapers, and
that's a lot.
The last place, I think it was 13 different cities I did work for because I was on the corporate side.
Wow. When you stop to think about how many eyeballs have been on your work, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little painful. It's a little, oh God, you saw that? No.
But now you can do, But that, it helps us grow into what we want to be. I think those experiences, and your agency is awesome.
Thank you. It's, in August, I hit 5 years, and then in October, I hit 29 years being in this industry. Awesome. Which is hilarious because I worked with it. I recruited a young woman to come work with me at the corporate paper side. And we were talking about how long I'd been doing this. She was like, oh, you started a year before I was born. I was like,
did you need to say that?
I was like, you shut your mouth.
So what prompted you to say, okay, I'm ready to do it, go it on my own, have my own agency?
I got very lucky in that the last job I had, the boss's boss felt like everybody was going to run away once we got bought out by Gannett.
Oh, sure.
So she got us all severance packages to where if we got laid off before 2 years past the sale date, we would get 40% of our annual salary.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, now's the time to do this. And if I run out of money, then I'll get a job.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, I got lucky. I've done no outbound marketing. It's all been referrals and and just recommendations. And it's been interesting. It's interesting looking, people you follow and stuff, and seeing people who specialize in like one thing, one look.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to mock Draplin. I know him.
Right.
I love him. I've known him for 12 years, I think, but he has his style.
Yep.
And there are a lot of people that are like, well, you need to figure out a style. And I was like, no, my adaptability is what makes me different than everybody else.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think my mom and I remember her as an interior designer saying, I want to go into that person's home, get the feel for who they are. And then the design I do for them, when their friends come over, they'll say, oh, this feels just like you. Instead of being that designer who you say, oh, so-and-so obviously did your home. And I think the same could be said for, an agency where you are listening to the needs of that client. And yes, you're bringing your skill, but like I and I'll put this in the show notes, but you had that great graphic. It was the newspaper they were going to start writing about breweries and just that really clean graphic you did with sort of reminiscent of a glass, a pint glass or whatever. And then just with the banner on it. And what it did to me was made me look, because it's clean graphic, but it tells you a lot very quickly.
Right.
And, so to me, it's listening to that client. What do they need? And how can you have fun with it?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because like a big part of my work is like social media and digital marketing.
Yeah.
And in the last, I would say month, I've done 5 SEO and social media audits for small businesses.
That's a huge thing. That probably isn't something 5 years ago you would have even known to say.
No.
That you were interested in.
A guy who is a sign painter who wants to tune up his website, a small publishing company that does like fantasy and horror work. It's a husband and wife team, a guy who builds high-end furniture. And just today I shot off one to a portrait photographer who's getting into videography and drone work.
Wow. See, now every one of those is completely different, and how fun, because your job is never boring then.
Right.
So what are you doing for them?
So what I do is I look at their footprint. I run their website through a few SEO programs to see what's missing and everything. But then I just look at their social and I try to figure out what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to get out of what they're doing. And I just write it up. I was like, here's some improvements. I think y'all do this, this, and this. Here's things you're not doing on your website, and the web crawlers are not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to start doing this, this, and this. Like the photographer today, probably 75% of my notes to him was, you're not using Instagram efficiently. And here's everything you need to do to make that work.
That's
like
awesome.
you have your business name in the handle, but in your name, it just says your name. Mm-hmm. So the search engines don't find you. Mm-hmm. I was like, you got to change that. And it was just I was like, I don't see drones, and you're really pushing that you want drone work. You need to put drone in, like all these little things. And then ideas for content, just like you don't have any video, you need to be posting video. It's all the things that,
if you're going to play, this is how you have to play.
And I bid on a project years ago, and I sat with a project manager and we whiteboarded everything for this client. And I got through and I was like, and I started just spouting out like organic reach through these channels and blah, 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 blah. And I got to the end, I literally went, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how I got here. I was like, I'm an idiot who played football, basketball, baseball, through shot put. I boxed.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be here spouting organic growth. I don't know. I was like, where am I? What is happening? And he just laughed at me because he was from Kentucky, and he was like, same. I'm with you.
But that's the beauty of it is, we get to grow into those things that interest us.
Yeah. And I love it. The biggest struggle, you talked about, imposter syndrome earlier, or maybe I heard it on the podcast, but the biggest struggle I have is looking at other people's work and going, that's not good. And you're not doing good by your client. And I don't like that. So where I've had to start muting people. And I was like, I can't unfollow because of politics.
Right.
That'll give me some significant blowback. But I think for mental health, I have that talk with a lot of my friends now. I was like, well, what do you have to do for mental health when you're creative?
Yes.
It's like, sometimes you just have to stop. Like one of my friends, her screen printing shop, Hannah Minocchio, Snakes and Aces in Cleveland, Ohio, the ceiling was leaking and it's a constant issue in her shop. She's like, somebody gifted me a tattoo for my birthday. I went and got a tattoo. I said, good for you. You got the hell out of there and you're doing something that's making you happy. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's important.
Your landlord figure that out, but good. You're not going to be as stressed when you go in tomorrow because it'll be fixed and you won't have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I really think the mental health part of this is another thing that we certainly touch on and talk about with each other, or those friends of ours, friends that you can go there with, but it's huge. And especially the last 2 years and just being at home or being by yourself, and just the huge internet surge of groups and ways to communicate and collaborate and be in community, and just what does this look like? And therapists are so busy, and our kids, just all of it. And I just think the best thing to do is to say, it's okay to acknowledge this, to acknowledge any of these ways we feel we are, and talk to somebody or read about it, or just be honest with yourself.
Right. There's a comedian I like, Ryan Sickler, and he's got a podcast called The Honeydew. And he was talking about, he's like, I didn't sign up to be a teacher. He's like, I barely graduated high school and now I'm having to be a teacher to my daughter. And he was like, that's a struggle. And people need to know that, yes, it's okay that you're struggling with having to do that. Yeah. Because you may not be qualified. He's like, I am not qualified to teach my daughter. I need someone else to do that because I am not good at that.
And I feel like the thing is, when we're willing to admit something, the help and the support come from everywhere.
Yeah. My friend Hannah up in Cleveland, I had 2 friends last year. Again, this is going to sound braggy, and I swear I don't mean it to. It's the Collins gene. It's the stubbornness. Little side story. So when I was young, all of my family is big. And when I was young, it was almost every weekend we were helping someone move or helping someone do something. And my grandfather knew how to do everything: plumbing, electrical, small engine repair, all that stuff. And my grandmother was huge in the church. My grandfather never went to church. But all the women that were my grandmother's friends, all their husbands had passed away. Oh. So he would go over there and help them do plumbing, do electrical. And I would always be the one holding the flashlight.
Nice.
And at the end, they would always try to hand him money, and he'd be like, give it to him. He'll get an ice cream. Like, so
what a good memory.
It was ingrained in me to like help people and try, and I had 2 friends last year, very early in the pandemic. I texted them. I was like, how are you doing? And they were like, not good.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to text you every Monday and ask how you're doing. And that's what's going to happen. I don't care if you don't want me to. I don't care. I'm going to do it. My friend Hannah, still to this day, I texted her earlier today, how are you doing? And she told me that about us. And it's like, no. I was like, checking in on you helps me make sure I'm checking in on myself too.
100%. That's true. I mean, really, it's a little mirror that we're holding up at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Okay. I'm going to go to something positive.
Let's do it.
Do you remember the first piece of art or an artist that made you kind of like stand up and take notice, that clicked you in like, oh my God, what is that?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I'm trying to remember way back. I remember we did live close enough to San Francisco that we'd go to, sometimes a big, exhibit would come through. And I remember the Van Gogh exhibit when I was really little. I must have been we moved to Napa Valley in 6th grade. So it was before that. But honestly, I remember my mom's paintings because those were around, and Percy Gray. My grandparents had a Percy Gray, early Californian painter of eucalyptus trees and kind of that California golden road. I remember that. I remember you asked, sorry. I do remember this etching. I had a little bed in my grandparents' house upstairs, and I would lay on my, I was head on the pillow and it was over my head. So I'd look at it upside down. It was an etching of the Peter Pan statue in Hyde Park. I remember that early on too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's way back. But anyway, it's a mix, but there were a variety of periods, because my grandparents were born in early 1900s. And anyway, what about you?
That's cool. I know it sounds basic and lame, but I think it was MC Escher.
Oh, cool. Fascinating then.
First time I got into art was in middle school, and my teacher was obsessed with Georgia O'Keeffe and MC Escher.
Good combo.
Those were the two. And like when I went off to high school and Mrs. Waller used to be she was a teacher at University of Tennessee. And we got to go to the art and architecture building. We went out back and she pointed and she was like, "This is my art." And I turned and looked, and it was just 3 rolling hills.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, that's grass, Miss Waller. She's like, "No, we did the 3 hills, my husband and I." And I was like, "You are high. What are you talking about? That's not art. What are you talking?" But she totally was like we would do screen printing, intaglio, like everything in high, like, cause she came from the University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
She's like, "We're going to do everything." And I wasn't a good artist. I'm still not a good hand illustration artist, but she was always like, "No, you come here and you try." So,
I love that.
Yeah. She was very encouraging.
So who was the first art teacher that you remember that made a difference?
It was that guy in middle school, and I can't remember his name, but I think it was because my best friend Anthony was unbelievable. Like were you into comic books?
Oh yeah.
He could draw like Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane when they were still drawing for Marvel.
Yeah.
Like he was such a good illustrator that he could look at it and just draw it exactly how it was.
Oh,
so I just hung out with him, and I was like,
"I'm
gonna draw my stick figures over here, Anthony, but you keep on doing what you do, man." I think being around him really helped. And then Mrs. Waller, like my favorite artists were Norman Rockwell, the basic ones, Norman Rockwell and MC Escher.
Good ones.
But the third one, Miss Waller exposed me to Piet Mondrian.
Oh, nice, Mrs. Waller.
She would always go, "Piet Mondrian." That's how she pronounced his name. So I went in that run where I was gaining all these opportunities when I was right after high school. I went to this t-shirt screen printing shop, and they had the cool application where the last thing was like, "Name your top 3 artists." And I was like, Norman Rockwell, MC Escher, Piet Mondrian.
Nice.
And as I was walking out the door, the guy went, wait, come here. I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Piet Mondrian?" I was like, "Yeah." "How?" Like it fried his brain. He was like, "I don't understand." And he was like, "Can you illustrate?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Okay, then this job's probably not for you." I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "Piet Mondrian, man, I don't understand." Like it freaked him out. He did not understand.
He probably was like, "Wait, I want to talk to you."
Yeah. Look at this big defensive lineman that just had to bow to come.
And knows how to spell that.
And knows who Piet Mondrian is. Yeah. Yeah, it was them. And I think working with like fonts on the computer was such a game changer for me, to where I would do different things and, flip them upside down. And
facially,
they were still blocks back then, like the little 8-bit things. But I think it was that. And I think my parents did not understand what I did. They still don't really understand what I do. There was one point, God love my mom. She is your sweet Southern mom, but she is cutting as all hell. There was one point when I worked at PetSafe. I was like, I'm like really good at what I do. And she's like, oh, that's funny, honey. It's like, damn it, Mom.
True, Mom.
She was like, I was like, I'm really good. Like I did this, and this. She was like, that's good, sweetie. Good for you, sweetie. It's like,
I don't really understand it, but I'm glad you're glad.
yeah, very much that. Very much. They still don't really. Dad's like, I don't know. He draws things and I don't know. He's really good at it. People like to hire him. People like him.
So if you were going to spend a perfect creative day, inspiring creative day for yourself, what would that look like?
It would start out, because of where I live, it would start out with a hike in the morning. Early morning, get to see a sunrise.
Nice.
It would be a hike somewhere. Come home. It would probably be having coffee with somebody to just keep that kind of positive energy going. And then literally just coming home and working. Like I work right here this is my office.
Nice.
And yeah, just sitting here and kind of zoning out. I've got a record player over here. I spin vinyl and just work. And I enjoy during the pandemic, I got into a bad habit of working on my laptop on my couch. And after like 6 months of that, I was like, I have to stop that. There's no line of delineation. I wake up, I come in here, I work, and then I go to bed. I was like, this is not good. So I like completely rearranged my office, put in the record player. I was like, no, this is now.
Yeah.
I hate to say sacred ground, but this is where the work happens.
That's good. You have to take care of your limitations and your boundaries.
How about for you? What is your perfect creative day?
A good creative day. Good creative day would actually be getting my hands into it. I spend so much time on the computer, and I spend so much time looking at other people's creativity, which I absolutely love. It sidetracks me. So a good creative day would be to be in my studio for hours and be able to have enough time to lose myself in a project and have completed some things at the end of the day. It just feels so good. So good to do that. And I'm a multifaceted, I like to paint, and I'm a silversmith, and I do some, I've just started doing some beading. A knitting project would be a great thing to actually finish from time to time, but really it's that silversmithing. It just gives me such a charge.
Do you feel weird if you get to the end of the day and you haven't completed something, or do you like, no, this is at an end point that I am comfortable with, and now I've done my work, I'm ready for bed?
If I felt weird, it would be, I am a non-completer. I just have I can't feel weird because I just have to say, okay, stop. For those of you who see me online late sometimes or early, depending on where you're listening, sometimes I just don't get going until 11 o'clock at night, and that's when I have my time where nobody else is expecting an answer. Nobody's needs more tea or a story or whatever. And no, I just go, but no, it's okay if it's not complete.
That's some of my favorite thing is doing emails at night, because the big thing, in the military, the big thing is that you get out of bed and the first thing you do is you make your bed because that's your first win of the day. And I've got friends that are like, oh, I get up at 6 a.m. and the first thing I do is I look at email and I get those done. And I'm like, I'm the opposite. I love firing off 5 emails at 12:15 at night and then being like, got it done. I'm going to bed. Like,
me too. That feels like a wrap up to me.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
I do make my bed first thing though.
I just throw it back over. I ain't got that kind of time. I got to go make coffee and get my oatmeal running. So I have listened to a lot of the podcasts. I've been trying to, I don't know if maybe you can explain this to me. It's not procrastination. I'm going to sound again like a negative ninny when I say this, or whatever is an appropriate term there. I don't know. There are a lot of things, anything I do, it's always harder than it should be, or it breaks. When it comes to there's this long tail of the sink in my bathroom and how many handles I've broken, and it's just sitting there and it doesn't work. and I'm going to have to rip the whole thing out and put in a new pedestal. And I know how to do all that stuff. And that's not a brag. It's like, but every time I look at it, I was like, not today, not
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Because this is going
Some
to
days
take,
are like that.
this is going to take longer than it should. So I feel like that even in my creative world, there are a lot of that. Like the thing I got done today, I was like, I need like 3 hours to sit down and focus on all that photographer's social media.
Mhm.
And it's probably, I should have got it done like a week ago, but he was like, oh, I don't care. And I was like, thank God you don't care.
Yeah, it takes that. I think for anything, if you're working on a big project, or you have to illustrate this certain thing, or you have to paint that, or you have to research this, or give somebody a proposal and understand their work before you do it, you need that block of time. And that might not come, okay, I'm going to schedule that at 10 o'clock tomorrow. It just doesn't really work that way for me, at least.
So not to have a dangling thread. So I've also needed to update my phone so I've been trying for 2 months to zero out my phone to be able to take it and get a new phone. And that's why I was a little bit behind on the podcast. But there was a question I thought of. I listened to 2 or 3 in the last couple of days that I had missed that were newer episodes. I'm curious how you feel like traveling affects your art, because you've gotten to travel so much. Like I heard the story about you going to China and all that. So how do you feel like that has affected
That's
your
a great
art?
question. I definitely feel like traveling has, it's just like we were talking about earlier with the color of your skin or who you want to hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's given me fewer barriers, brought barriers down, because I just appreciate art from all over. I really think about it in terms of color, maybe even more. Like I'll think about the color of the sky in Shenzhen on a rainy day. Like that's a different color than the color here. Or, China, and I'm focusing on China, but I have been lucky to travel to a lot of places. But traveling to a city in inland China that's been making ceramics and porcelain for 2,000 years is way different than, your art teacher that's, not your art, somebody that's just, it's just different. It's so refined. And I, museums and overseas. And I loved early on, again, my dad was a pilot, so I would make myself go places by myself. I arranged, and some of you have heard this before, but I arranged my studios my senior year in college to Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I could. I don't mean to sound privileged, although I was very privileged to be able to do this, but it was free. I had friends I could stay with, and it didn't cost me anything to fly. I just had to save the money to park my car somewhere or get to the airport. Right. And I would go, and I always felt like arts, but seriously crafts in England were so much more respected, because, when you think of crafts in the 80s, 70s, it was very helping hands at home and not high end or admired. And I'd go to England and I'd spend just hours in the craft council looking through they had slide drawers and, just thinking, oh my gosh, I am so in tune with this beautiful pottery that I'm looking at, or these silk screens, or these block prints, or the way they make jewelry. It just felt so advanced to me. And so much more like somebody was thinking about it, felt so artful. So I remember that really changed the way I saw things, for sure. Cause I just would walk myself somewhere or store windows, so many things. That was a long answer, but
no, that's great. Like I think it's also, this is the simplest answer ever. It's also getting outside of your comfort zone.
For sure.
One of the times I was in San Francisco, I went and saw a play. Do you know Cormac McCarthy?
Yes.
I assume everybody.
Yeah.
So he's from or lived in Knoxville.
And I don't think I knew that.
His book Suttree is about Knoxville.
Oh.
And And it's not positive at all because it's Cormac McCarthy.
Right.
But I was in San Francisco one time and I picked up the Alt Weekly, and they were doing a play in this tiny black box theater that was like 2 levels up of the Sunset Limited, which I had read the book of. And I was like, oh, I've got to go to that.
Yeah.
So I went and bought my ticket, and then I went that night, and there was room for maybe 50 people in that theater. It was tiny. And I'm sitting next to grandmothers, like a group of 5 grandmothers, and they sit right next to me, and one of them looks at me and says hello, and I say hello, and she was like, because I was by myself, she was like, what brings you here? And I was like, oh, well, the guy who wrote this is from my city. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. She was like, well, that's weird, you're here, do you live here? I was like, no, I'm just traveling. She was like, that's weird, you're here and his play's playing. I was like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Like it's a weird, but it's, sometimes I think here in my city, I might be too bogged down to think, oh, I should go do that.
I think that's one of the things. Yeah. One of the things about traveling is we allow ourselves, growing up in the Napa Valley, people are like, oh, you must go wine tasting. No, I don't go wine tasting. Like only if a friend comes, if I'm playing tourist, but I think that's the same, whether at museums. We have to stop and remind ourselves when I was, I worked in London. I was a waitress in London a long time ago. And again, that was the salary I was making. So I'd go to Leicester Square after work, and see what tickets were cheap. And then you could pay like $2 to stand in the back of a theater. So as often as I could, I would go watch something. Whereas normally that would be a big deal. We're getting dressed up, and I just would seize that opportunity.
I got one for you. So 2 big regrets. The first time I went to New York, because I didn't grow up going anywhere. The first trip I took as an adult on my own was to drive over to Asheville.
Nice.
Like in the early 2000s. That's a city that how it has changed. It's nuts. Because back then it was an art town.
Yes.
That there was no industry, because I was looking, I was like, maybe I need to move to Asheville. I was like, there's not enough industry here for me.
I was there then. I mean, visiting there then.
But now it's like a tech city. There's like co-op working spaces and all this big tech there. And I'm like, because it's all the beer. All the beer.
Antiques. Oh, okay.
All the beer. Like there's like 40 or 50 breweries there now. Like that's what's drawing everybody there. But like the first time I went to New York, I had friends that were like, now don't take your camera because it'll get stolen. This is like 2007. I was like, are you out of your mind? Like who's gonna steal from me? But the first time I went up there, I had 2 opportunities that I did not make enough money to do these 2 things. One of them you're going to love because of football. One of them was to see Neil Young doing a solo acoustic show in like the Bowery Ballroom or it's some tiny venue. Yeah. The only tickets were standing room only, and it was like $80.
Oh.
To stand in the back. I was like, I can't do that. I can't.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm going to have to give up an entire night. I can't do that. I can't do that. I regret that now.
Yeah.
The second thing was I was there when the Heisman Trophy Award was being given away, and I could have gone to it.
Oh, that would have been fascinating. What year was that?
This was 2007, but I would have had to pack a suit. And I was like, my suit's from high school, and I went from being 330 to like at the time
standing up for $80, pack a suit. Neither of those things are going to happen.
And I'm trying to think, like, to go to it was not that expensive. And I was like, why has no one told me you can go to the Heisman Award ceremony?
That would be really cool.
Yeah. Those are 2 things. I'm like, man, I wish I would have gone. But then I had so many other weird experiences while I was up there. I was like, nah, it's like, they're disappointing, but I chose.
Oh gosh. Things. But see, that's the thing. You're like, I could have done these things, but look at all these things that weren't on my list that I discovered because I was open to it.
Yeah.
That to me is what life should be about.
Yeah. Let's see. What led you to doing the podcast? What was it that was like, I have to do this?
So I thought about it for years before I did it. And a lot of it started in the pandemic. So September 8th, what was that, 2020, I guess.
Mhm.
And I just I've for a long time wanted a way. I'm a connector of people. It's just something I love to do. And I love to help artists understand they could get further than they thought they could. So one way to do that is just having conversations with people. And I get so many people saying, oh, I saw myself in that. And that just made me keep going, or made me think differently about where I am, or whatever that the case may be. But also I think to kind of put myself out there again in a different way, and hopefully seem approachable to people. And sometimes it's harder now to get people to come on because they'll say, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just a conversation between two friends. That's all. It might not make any sense to anybody else listening.
You're having the exact same. So I have.
Yeah, because you have a podcast.
I have a podcast, Rambling Man. I've got another one that I have 40 episodes recorded that I haven't released yet, too.
Oh, my goodness. Get going.
Big Man, Big Fan. And it's about movies.
Nice.
But I also have a weekly radio show on Raucous Radio called Porch Sitting.
Oh, and nice.
Every time I have people on Porch Sitting or Rambling Man, they're like, I'm just so nervous. I have to get drunk before I was like, it's me. Yeah. You and I would have these conversations on a porch if it was just the two of us, you dumbass. Like, yeah, but it's being recorded. It's for posterity. I was like, nobody cares. It's fine. Like, and the last friend I had over, she's just gotten into acting.
Nice.
And so we talked about her, and she's like, I'm so scared. I was like, it's me.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. And if we get done and you're like, no, I felt stupid, I'll delete it.
Exactly.
I don't care. I do not care.
I think the other great thing too is it gives me an excuse, a reason, it's acceptable to sit down and have these kind of conversations when as humans, we rarely do that anymore.
Yeah.
We're like, how are you? Oh, gotta run. And I really love the ability or the reason to say, what do you think about this?
And I think it's the little bit there are two things that really made me start this. And one of them is, I think it's my dad in me. I can talk to a brick wall. Like, and I've learned that some of my friends are like, I hate that when like you're in an elevator and somebody just starts talking to you. Ugh. And I was like, shut up. You never know who you're going to meet. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I love doing that. And one of my first episodes of Rambling Man was my buddy. I had just went on a road trip for baseball. And I went from Knoxville to Cleveland to Knoxville to Detroit to Chicago to home, all to see baseball.
Nice.
Cleveland will get into the Lisa story that I've made big on my screen. I was like, don't forget to tell the Lisa
I'm going to remind you.
But one of my first episodes, I'd just come back for that trip, and I was like, I'm trying to think how to say this. This may come off sexist. I swear to God, I don't mean it sexist. I'll explain. Guys have a tendency to make fast friends in bars and cigar shops. And I still believe that's true. Like, I can't, because the joke between the three of my friends and I about cigar smoking is we're trying to be the non-douchey cigar smokers. Like, we literally do it
Can you do
as
that?
a community thing and as a stress release. Like, there was one job I worked, I went to a friend's house every night after work and smoked a cigar. And it made that job more tolerable.
Yeah.
That I could have that release every day. And so I'll end up in cigar shops. I went to one on that trip in Chicago. I go into a cigar shop. You can't smoke inside there. And so you had to go sit out on the sidewalk or the stoop. And I'll walk out. Again, this is going to sound more braggy than I mean it to. There's a group of white guys and a group of black guys. And I was like, I'm going over here.
Yeah.
And I went and sat with the black dudes.
Yeah.
And there's a guy sitting across from me smoking, and he's quizzical on why the big goofy white dude came over here and sat in the middle of his group. And he looked at me. He's like, "You're not from here, are you?" I was like, "No, sir." And he's like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "Tennessee." He's like, "Wait, which part of Tennessee?" And I said, "East Tennessee." And
I'm just going to be more comfortable over here. Trust me.
Yeah. And he was like, what part of East Tennessee? I was like, Knoxville. And he was like, my cousin she owns her own landscaping business. She lives in Knoxville. I went, oh, you talking about Deirdre? It blew his mind. He was like, what the? He started freaking out and he's like, how do you know her? I was like, oh, I'm on the Business Advisory Council. I met her last week. Also, she's a black female owner of a landscaping company. Yeah. That's a very narrow margin. Like, that's a very narrow. And he was just like, I can't believe it.
Oh, that's so cool.
I can't believe it. And then at one point, one of the white guys walked over and he looked at me. He's like, Tennessee? I said, yeah. He was like, what do you know about moonshine? I was like, well, I make it myself. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I make moonshine. And it's like when I was in Detroit, same thing. I was sitting there. I just went to the baseball game, came and had a cigar. And this dude was sitting next to me and he was falling asleep. And finally he woke up and they were showing there had been a big fight between the Tigers and the Yankees during the game, to where there were like 3 sets of ejections, like 3 different fights. And he was like, that was crazy. I was like, yeah, I was there. He was like, oh, I was there. And then we started talking about baseball.
See?
For like an hour. I was like, this is the greatest. Like, this is so much fun.
It is fun. Those things that bring us together.
But doing those things made me feel more comfortable doing the podcast. And then the story I always tell is hanging out with 2 friends, my friend Joachim Schmidt and Sean Pointner. Joachim, his job forever was curating an art museum and hanging art for rich people in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So we started talking about art. And I mentioned, like, when I say Norman Rockwell, the 2 of them are like, ugh, he has nothing to say. He's boring. I like this. And they rattle off some name. I was like, you pretentious idiot. Come on, man. Like, I was like, can't you just like what you like? It was this 4-hour conversation. And then the next
those
night
can be fun.
Yeah. And the next night, Sean Pointner and our friend Lance were sitting there, and Lance was like, I'm thinking about getting into astronomy. And he just kept talking about it. And 5 minutes later, I was like, oh my God, dude, I just realized you said astronomy, not astrology. Because I was about to start busting with I'm a Scorpio with a whatever. And I was like, how funny. And then for 30 minutes, we talked about how funny it was that if somebody got that wrong.
Which must happen often.
Yes. And he was dying. And it was the next day I went and bought all the equipment. And I looked through my friends, and my friend Aaron Donovan had just come back from mountain biking in the Czech Republic. And I was like, all right, we're going to meet and talk about it. And that's what we did. Awesome. And that's how it started. It was just like, no, I've got too many interesting people in my life that their stories need to get out. And don't want to say nobody's. Hell, I'm a nobody. Like, I'm not. I had friends when I had Draplin on, they're like, how'd you get Draplin? I was like, I've known that idiot for 12 years. I'm on his state of Tennessee poster. My name is on his poster around Knoxville. I was like, and this will lead into Lisa.
There you go.
I had to look up her name because I always mispronounce it. I always say Congdon or something like that. So there used to be this great design and art conference in Cleveland, Ohio called Weapons of Mass Creation Festival. And I went from year 2 to year 8.
Nice.
And year 2, I saw it on Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, I drive. So here's another funny fact. I drive a Toyota Yaris. So I look like a gorilla in a Toyota. So I was like, it won't cost me anything in gas. I found a cheap hotel, and it's like $50 for a ticket to go to this conference for 3 days. It's like, I'm going to go because it cost me like $300 to go. And so I went. And I saw Draplin speak, saw all kinds of people speak. And it seemed for a while like that was the farm league for the Howe conference, because Draplin was there. Excuse me. And then the next year he was in a small room at Howe, and then he kept growing.
Yeah.
And it was like Austin Kleon, Draplin. There were all kinds of people that you would see him there. And then the next year Johnny Cupcakes.
Oh, wow.
Was another one like that. I got to meet all these people because it's this tiny conference.
Very cool.
And this was, I think, 2011, 2012, 2013. So the guy who booked it was named Joseph. So I'm 6'7". Joseph is like 6'4", bald, big beard. So I'm walking down the street and I can hear somebody yelling something. I was like, she's not saying my name. And I can see she's kind of running. And then I turn to go in the theater, and all of a sudden behind me, I think I stopped, and she kind of punched me in the back. And she's like, Joseph. And I turned around. She went, you're not Joseph. I was like, I'm not Joseph. That's Joseph. She was like, I'm so sorry. And went to talk to him. That was Lisa. I was like, she punched me in the back. I was like, I bet she would not remember that. But
she might.
I was dying laughing when all of a sudden, like she kind of had a name back then, but she wasn't as big as she is now. And then every time I see her now with, how big she is, I was like, that's the lady that punched me in the back.
Joseph,
you're not Joseph.
I'll have to ask her next time she comes on. Well, I'll ask her.
That happened a lot of times at that conference, where somebody would sit down mid-sentence talking to me and go, oh my God, you're not Joseph. I'm like, I'm not Joseph. Good Lord. And he kept laughing about it. He's like, this is the dumbest thing ever. We got to stand next to one another so people will not bother you.
I'm sure I love that. So if you had, so let's pretend you're talking to the school or any school. Give me your 3 top things to think about if you're wanting to make your mark.
For a kid or for anybody?
Anybody.
3 things. I always have to go to the first one. I'll have to quote the great poet laureate of our time, Rocky Balboa, when I say, keep moving forward.
Yes.
There's a great speech in his film in the 2006 Rocky Balboa, where he's talking to his son, and I can almost say the entire speech right here, but I will not do that. But he's like, nothing is going to hit you as hard as life, but you can't give up. You have to keep moving forward.
Love it.
And that has been my mantra for especially the last 2 years, but probably the last 5 years, especially.
It's so important, especially
keep moving forward. It's like you're going to get knocked down, you're going to get beat up, but you got to get back up. You got to just keep moving forward.
Good.
So that's a big one for me.
I love it.
Second one would probably be never stop learning. Like that was a big thing for me. Like we were talking about, the social media thing earlier. Mm-hmm. I started learning design when I was in 1992, when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
So because I was in the print shop, I would get to learn other facets. It's like, oh, I'm on a certain level in design. So I just kept that up. And it was like, okay, I'm good at design. Let me learn marketing. And I learned marketing, and it just kept going until before it was called SEO, I knew what SEO was from building websites in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And then I had to bid on a project and I had to reacclimate myself with SEO. And I sat there for an entire day reading everything I could. And it was almost like Neo in the Matrix at the end. I was like, I know SEO. Yeah. It was like, that's all it took. And it was like, there are times where you can be bored, but don't be bored and don't be snobby about things. Like, don't be, that goes in with the always keep learning. Because I got too many friends that are like, I don't want to do that. I was like, cool. Enjoy your life. I'm going to go do this and have an experience.
Yeah.
Third thing, I hate to be this basic, but figure out a way, no matter how you do it, to travel. If you got to go work at Taco Bell for 3 months to save up money to travel, do it.
Yeah.
You have to get the hell out of your city.
You have to change your perspective.
The kids, when I go and talk at Fulton, our downtown area, there's an area called Market Square.
Mm-hmm.
The kids that live in the projects, I was telling them, I was like, oh yeah, in this place on Market Square. And they're like, I've never been to Market Square. I'm like, that is literally 3 miles away from you, but you can't go because you can't afford to go. And I get it.
Right.
I was like, just go there. Just ask your parents if you can just go walk around downtown.
That's cool.
I was like, that's step one. I was like, you have to get away. You have to get away.
It really makes all the difference. And I think having a perspective that your world is not the only is so stinking important.
So I can either ask you that, or I have another question, which is, what is next for you? Do you know what's next for you? I mean, are there goals you have like with the podcast or with your art where you're like, this is where I want to be?
You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on right now. I think what's next is a broader platform to help people, help artists. The goal of a lot of the people that I work with is I want to get my work into the world. I want to get my art on product. I want to license, or I want to see my art out into the world. I want to make a living doing this. So if I can find a few more ways, whether it's teaching or licensing or, you know, whatever it is to help that happen for people, that would feel really good to me. And I have some things in place for that. And then if I could actually finish a project in my studio, that would be great too.
So
Small goals.
I thought of another. Do you have a dream guest, or do you have dream guests?
A dream guest? Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you want to put it out into the world, or do you want to hold that one tight?
Oh no, and my sister, if she's listening, will be like, just ask her. I think Morgan.
Okay.
I'd love to have Morgan Harper Nichols on.
Okay.
I'd love to have. I haven't thought about this in a while because I have so many people that I'd love to have on. Gosh, I feel super fortunate that a lot of people's dream guests I get to call friends, like Lisa and people like Amy Butler, and a lot of the people that I have had on. But stretch goals would be Adele, or a musician, or somebody where I could say, gosh, you act, tell me about that. Or you're a world renowned musician, or your paintings are everywhere. Or, I wish I could conjure up my grandmother and have her on.
Yeah. I think someone asked me that early on. They're like, that it was a take on the old question of like, who would you have at your dinner table? Like naming 3 people.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there's only one, my grandfather. Like I would love, because my grandfather, very quiet man, always looked like he was angry, man. Didn't talk. And then I got into college, and he gave me one of the greatest pieces of advice that really changed my world. And I know you asked for 3 people to inspire me. I think I put 4 because I was like, I can't.
You did. I want to talk about that because we could talk forever, but
okay.
But we have
here I'll roll into why I mentioned my grandfather. I was working at Taco Bell. I wasn't liking it. I was doing managerial work, but getting paid as an employee, which back then was $3.85 an hour.
Yeah.
Like it was ridiculous. And then I had an opportunity to go work stock shelves at Walmart. Because again, I come from a blue collar world. I have to work.
Yeah.
Like I ain't got time. I ain't got no safety net. I got to pay for school. And, but it was going to be harder. Like the schedule was going to be different. And I'm sitting there talking to my grandfather and just bloviating at him at like, I think 19. I never did that. And, he sat there and listened to me. He was like, are you happy? I said, no. And he was like, just quit. Life's too short to be unhappy. And then he died within 2 weeks of that.
Oh my gosh, really?
Massive heart attack, died.
Oh, wow.
So just as I was feeling more comfortable being able to talk to him,
like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
he died.
Man.
And same thing. I have my dad's younger brother, my Uncle Doc. He and I, we've always been close. My uncles Doc and Tom. So there's a funny story. My uncle is Uncle Tom, and his name is also Tom Collins.
Oh gosh, great.
So, but they were almost like surrogate dads. And my Uncle Doc passed away when he was like 54 or something. And it was just like the minute he died, I was like, oh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So I need to do as much as I humanly possibly can because
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to die. And I don't want to, you're always going to have regrets.
Not have
but
lived.
It's like, I've got friends that they save X amount of money, and when they go out of town, they eat at Applebee's because they know it's going to be safe and all this crap. I'm like, enjoy dying and just being like, I could have lived. I was like,
Yeah.
no, you got to live while you're here, man. I ain't got that kind of time, man.
It's true.
I'm on borrowed
You really
time.
do.
I got to live, man. So yeah,
So
that's
true.
why I had to put my grandfather down. I can't. I know who I put one of them down, but I can't remember how I put the other two.
Your people that are inspiring you.
I know one of them was Kevin Smith because I can't
Yep.
go an hour without talking about Kevin Smith.
I love that.
If Kevin Smith and Magic Johnson are the two that if I ever met them, I'm just going to walk up to him and say, hey, man, I'm going to hug you and I'm going to cry. And that's what's going to happen. And I think Magic Johnson would be like, come on in. I think Kevin Smith would be like, security.
I think you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, Kevin Smith has this great speech from one of his talking shows about life as an artist.
Mhm.
And he was like, find the why not people. Screw the why people. Find the why not.
Okay,
people.
there's a good one.
Yeah. He was like, don't surround yourself with people who are going, why? Why would you do that? Find the people that are like, why not?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn it. Yes.
I couldn't agree more with that. That's so good. Yeah, he's an inspiration for sure.
Yeah. And then he's just kind of, he calls it chasing whimsy. And I love that phrase, chasing whimsy.
That needs to be illustrated right now.
Yeah. So I knew I said Kevin Smith and my grandfather. I can't remember how
You said Killer Mike.
Killer Mike. So Killer Mike, I knew who he was from Outkast because I grew up listening to, when I got out, when I didn't have practice, I was watching Rap City and Batman the Animated Series in high school. That's what I watched. Killer Mike I knew because I loved Outkast and just what he's done with his fame.
Mm-hmm. Seems like a very cool guy.
It's almost like what I was saying about my uncle is like, he's like, no, now is my moment. I'm going to do everything.
And he puts himself out there.
Yes. And he says a lot of things that a lot of people have problems with. He was like, no, this is why. And, talking about Black-owned businesses and stuff before 2020, before a lot of white people discovered racism was a thing.
Right.
He was promoting Black-owned businesses. He's got a great YouTube video from Adult Swim called Life Advice. And it's great. It's like a minute and a half. But yeah, Killer Mike is one that I think what he's done with his platform is unprecedented. Not unprecedented, but you would have a hard time finding many people that do the same thing.
Yeah. As richly, there's a lot there. There's a lot to look at. And he's an inspiration.
He would be a dream guest for me, but I would feel dumb because he is smart on a level that is uncomfortable.
Okay, but think if he felt that way with all the people that he interviews, because he has some names on there. So I double dare you to go ask.
So I am one step away from Killer Mike.
Okay, good.
There's an artist named Studio.
One of those guys you smoke cigar with.
No. There's a guy in Atlanta that goes by Studio Temporary, and he has done work for Killer Mike.
Okay.
And I was like, I think I might. I was like, but I honestly probably wouldn't go through him. I'd probably just be like, hey, Killer Mike, I would love to have you on. That's when I got to have him in person. So I will say the cigar thing, my buddy Jason and I have been wanting to do the Cigar Project forever. And he was like, one of them is a podcast and where you sit down and smoke cigars with somebody and you have a conversation.
Nice.
And I said, my dream guest will be Sylvester Stallone. I was like, I know he has a lot of problems, but that man has
it'd be an interesting conversation. But you could quote him.
Because I think Schwarzenegger, it would be the same thing over and over. I think Sylvester Stallone is actually a very smart man and a very artistic and empathetic man. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And now who was the fourth? Who was who did I?
Let's see. You said three. So you said Kevin Smith and your grandpa and oh no, you did say four. All right. This was a good one too. Sorry, everybody. Katie Porter.
So, I'm 6'7". I get an extra because I'm more than one human.
That's right. You do. You get four.
So Katie Porter. Now this is something troublesome to say. Do you know Katie Porter?
I know.
She's in California.
Yeah,
she's
Orange
the
County.
rep in California. She is unbelievable and amazing and ballsy, and everything I admire in someone who is in politics.
Mhm.
because she's doing it for the right reason, and she's not taking any guff. And
Hopefully
she was like,
she's the turtle in the hair. She's the tortoise in the hair, and she's the tortoise making it happen.
and I see a lot more people getting credit and stuff. But I was like, I'm telling you, Katie Porter, out of everybody that is there, Katie Porter is the one that I care about the most. And
That's so cool.
I care about her success. Like I'm almost like bought in. It's like a lot of other people do surface level crap. And she is like, I'm a single mom. I'm here to make a difference. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
damn it. I don't even live out there, and I want to. You got my respect.
That's cool that you're
vote
paying
and everything.
attention. That means you're paying attention to what people are saying. And what
I'll
they
try to tell
believe
this
in.
short. So my dad, even though he's a truck driver, they were trying to build an apartment complex next to our house that would have been like 1,800 people in 9 acres, like an insane in one little row. So this was 1990, and he was like, nope. And he got involved with his neighborhood organization. And he has been president of his neighborhood organization since like 1991. And back then he was like, those people in Washington don't give a damn about us. Local politics is where that. So I was writing his speeches when I was in middle school because he was like, you're taking English. Figure out what I need to say. And I would write his speeches for him. I went to city council, MPC, county commission, all those, and have been since I was 11 or 12.
That's
with
cool.
him. So when it comes to politics, I am a giant nerd.
That's very cool.
Yeah, but Katie Porter is a dream guest. Katie Porter is one
there
of the
you
like
go.
I don't know what to say because
she would say yes in a heartbeat.
I know.
Because somebody who cares like that, and
but,
might be a few other people might be listening to outside Orange County, you know?
Yeah. But her and Killer Mike, I'd want to do in person. I'd be like, I have to do it in person, man. I got to meet you. I got to give you a hug, man.
Right.
Respectfully.
That fits travel in because you can fit your travel in.
Yeah.
Those are good goals. Okay. Well, I love hanging out with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for being on mine. And
Absolutely.
This was great. I like listening to podcasts. I think you're a positive light sometimes on dark days where I hear it, and you're so happy and encouraging to the artists you have on. It's very, very helpful.
Thank you. Well,
some days I got to throw on Mare and just be like, nah, I got to be angry today.
You can do that. It's just how I am. It is. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I can't wait to listen. I want you to release the 43 that are waiting in there.
Oh, the movie podcast. So
the movie podcast.
Yeah, Big Man Big. It's because I want to do a Patreon for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the problem I've had is what I've set up with the Patreon. I would have to have a guest commentator, like somebody sit down and watch a film with me, and getting people to do that's been a nightmare.
Yeah, that means a film and a story. And
I think I'm just going to have to start doing it because I show films here or before the pandemic twice a month. I'm also a film nerd. I am not married, never been married, and don't have any kids. You can see all this.
Yep.
There are 24 hours in a day, and I try to get all of it. So the movie podcast, I need to just start doing what I did with the film screens, where I would look up facts and stuff for films.
Well, if you ever want a 13-year-old who's really into films to review any with you, you just let me know. I have your guy.
What's his favorite film?
Oh, hey, hold on. I'll find out. Cooper, what's your favorite film? Yeah. Apocalypse Now right now, he's going to say.
Perfect film. I actually rewatched it like 6 months ago. I was like, this is nobody will ever be able to make a film like this ever again. This is unbelievable. And I know all the weird facts about it because I've watched the documentaries and read everything, all the weird stuff around Brando. Yeah, Apocalypse Now, that's a killer. So here, I'll give you, so my top 5 are weird. And it's Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, good one.
Unforgiven.
Ooh,
that one may be too grown up for it. Well, I don't know. Apocalypse. I don't know.
He's
Unforgiven is unrelenting. 12 Angry Men.
Good one.
Here's where I go the curveballs. When Harry Met Sally.
Love it.
And Back to the Future.
Nice.
But I will say, I'll give you one, my slept on film. So that's the big thing. I interviewed somebody about their favorite film, and I was like, what is your most slept on film?
Love that.
And I was like, I actually think Castaway and Moneyball are slept on films because nobody talks about them anymore. They made a lot of money.
It's true.
But my recommendation to him to watch is a film from the 80s called 3 O'Clock High.
Okay.
There was an HBO film. It's about a guy that this is a little bit of a spoiler, but he accidentally touches a new student on the arm, and that guy doesn't like to be touched. So they are going to have a fight at 3 o'clock.
Oh.
And it is amazing.
Okay.
Now there are problematic words. Like I think the FAG word is in it because it's 1980s. But it is unbelievable. It's so tight, and it's only like an hour and a half long. Like I rewatch it.
Okay. Oh, good. He watches quite a range. Last week I got to pick though, and we watched, or he wanted to watch these as well, but Dead Poets Society and Good Will Hunting, and he hadn't seen those. And the week before we watched some really, I might not even say, because parents will be like, "What? You're letting your kid watch that?"
Oh no! So growing up, my parents, the rule was I couldn't see nudity, but I could hear cursing. I watched Robin Williams live at the Met when I was like 5.
Oh, wow.
And I turned around and asked my mom what the C word was.
Yeah.
Because he said it. And she was like, no.
That is not a word we use.
And I was like, wait, y'all are letting me watch this. But anytime boobs were on the screen, they're like, turn your head. And so I saw, like, we went to the theater and saw a bunch of inappropriate stuff when I was a kid. And I was like, now as an adult, I'm like, y'all are hilarious. It's like that you let me see everything I saw.
Well, he wants to be, I said, if you could pick right now, and he said film, definitely want to be in film or music, because he's really it's interesting what we're interested in. Yeah.
With these things, it's getting easier and easier.
Yeah, it is.
It's so something you might like sharing with them. There's a band called The Midnight. And they're like a retro wave 80s band sounding. People cut 80s films to their songs.
Oh, cool.
So it's like 48 hours cut to the Midnight song.
Oh, very cool. He'd be totally into that. He's always scoring in his mind.
Yes. So to where there was a point where there was one of their songs was like, I can't find any video cut to this song. And I started listening to the song. I was like, this sounds like Say Anything. I was like, I need to do that. I need to cut Say Anything to this song because it fits perfectly. Even through the beats and stuff.
Oh my gosh, very cool. Yeah. You have all sorts of things to create.
All right. Yeah. I need to let you go. Good Lord. Because I'll just sit here. Again, I can talk to a wall. I'll just sit here and
I appreciate being your wall today.
And if you want to send me if you're cool with me posting it through Ramblin' Man,
sure.
I'll send people I heard on one of your podcasts where you said you hit 50,000 listeners.
Oh, I almost at 150.
Damn it. I'm at like 30,000. I never promote it though. I promote it once in Ramblin' Man. I'm surprised I have 30,000.
That's awesome.
I don't know how I got there.
It's awesome.
But it is. Yeah. I'll be happy to swap cast.
Absolutely.
Post it too.
I'll get it to you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And it's very nice meeting you.
Thank you so much. You too. I'm always up for a good conversation. So anytime.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Thanks Jody. Take care.